Good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. Sherman D. Manning joining you live from Beverly Hills, California. This is another podcast. Everybody, tune in, call your buddies, call your friends, call your enemies, tell them to catch us live right now. Tell them this is live and that's no jive. Let's talk a few minutes collectively, or rather, collectively, in that you'll be listening in this monologue that I hope you will find interesting. Let me have some pizza, buddy. In some sense, about the politics of corrections. The politics of corrections. The politics of corrections. Now, first and foremost, shall I begin with my normal intro? Anytime I'm talking about corrections and prisons, I always remind people that I was talking with a pretty young white woman a few days ago. And the question she asked me was, why should I care about what goes on in prisons? Give me one reason that I should be concerned about anything going on inside a prison. And I told her that I would give her 800,000 reasons that she should be concerned about what was going on in prisons. And that is the fact that 800,000 people get out of prison every year. And that those people come to her neighborhood, your neighborhood, and my neighborhood to reside. And if we have allowed them to be abused, beat down, mistreated, disrespected, discriminated against, etc., then they're going to be angrier, sicker, and slicker. And when they get out of jail, they'll reoffend and return quicker. So we have to be concerned about what goes on in prisons. It is ludicrous to not be concerned about what goes on in prisons. These are our prisons, and these are our people. Now, perhaps you don't know anyone personally who is incarcerated. That's a good thing. God bless you. Amen. I'm glad for you. Perhaps you will never go to prison yourself. Amen. God bless you. I'm glad for you also. But the bottom line deal is, in your neighborhood somewhere, there is an ex-con. And my question is, what kind of society do we want to be? We have to make that decision. What kind of society do we want to be? Here's what we're doing now. Penologists and criminologists are looking at third grade test scores to determine how many prisons they're going to have to build 20 years from now. Did you get that? That's about as sick as you can get. That's about as deep as you can get. You should have to chew on that for a little while before you even are able to digest that mentally and psychologically. That's a tough pill for me to swallow. I still can't fathom it. I still have not gotten over it. I still have not been able to process it in a proper fashion and in a manner that is difficult. Penologists and criminologists now look at the test scores of third graders, and they use those test scores to determine how many prisons they are going to have to build 20 years from now. That is so wrong, you can't make it right. First and foremost, my knee-jerk reaction would be, we should be pouring money into building up an educational infrastructure and building up teachers, etc., who can teach these students and bring them up to snuff educationally so that they are not going to prisons 20 years from now. How sick is society? How sick have we become when we will allow our kids to be counted as cattle and looked upon as animals and as numbers and as failures when they're 8 years of age? But that, my friend, gets back to what I call the politics of corrections. Please understand that there is a political machine in this country which controls how many prisons we build, how many jails we build, how many people we incarcerate versus how many kids we educate. There is a political machine behind this. And unfortunately, most politicians are in on it, so to speak. And I don't like to use that terminology. Keep in mind, if you've listened to my show for a while, if you've been a participant in this podcast, then you know very well that I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not one of those kind of guys who sits back and thinks that everything is a conspiracy, everything is a plan. I've said on many occasions, I think some things just happen, and they happen collectively, because it's as simple as I can have an idea, and it is safe to assume that I'm not that crazy, that odd, that unique, or that special, that out of 7 billion people on the planet, I will be the only one to have that idea. So what I think happens in many instances is people in different places, sometimes in the same kinds of positions, sometimes working the same kinds of jobs, etc., will get the same or similar idea. And they will begin to do these things. And they'll do these things disconnected, unconnected to anybody else, and not in a collective fashion at all. But the end results are when we see this prison warden doing the same thing that prison warden is doing the same thing that prison warden is doing the same thing that politician is doing. These people all had the same idea or the same thought or similar thoughts. And they did these things and did those things. And it looks like they might have gotten together around a table, sat in a room, and decided to do this. And that's just not the case in most instances. So I'm not talking about a conspiracy here. I'm talking about a group of politicians who are all playing a part of doing the same thing, which is basically they are locking up people forever and never giving them a chance to come out. We'll be back right after this.